Good evening. I'm talking about entrepreneurship. At the core of what entrepreneurs do, they recognize a problem. In 1980, my fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi, had a really big problem. We didn't have money, we didn't have investment money for Pioneer Week. This is a big problem at Chico State. So with a lot of brainstorming, we came up with the idea of a donut stand. And over the course of a couple of weeks, we put it together. We bought donuts from Helen's Donuts in Chico and coffee. We operated at the library. And we did it for a very short period of time. And then we realized that we had a really, really good idea. And we continued to operate that over 4 years. And we would make, on average, $25,000 a year net income. And that included paying the brothers to work there in shifts. So we saw a problem, and we took advantage of it. The other thing an entrepreneur always has to face is failure. As it was mentioned, I started on Wall Street, and in the mid-'80s, I got the idea of starting my own firm. I started playing around with different ideas, different options, different strategies. And a thing called the crash came along in October of 1987 that completely wiped me out financially in my young days of trying to figure out how to make money. And I dealt with the failure, and I was honestly very embarrassed about it, but some of my clients were venture capitalists, and when I was trying to tell one of them about it, he turned it around and said, you know, we really look for failure in people and see how they deal with adversity. So in the jobs that I do now, in terms of looking for investments, looking for young companies, I'm always very curious about have people failed and how they dealt with it. So in 1989, I realized that there was a really big opportunity for me to go on my own. I left an investment banking firm where I was a general partner and founder, and I started what was called a hedge fund. And this was very early, 1989. I started with $1.1 million. And I had a trading strategy that was fairly unique at the time. And I exploited different sort of underfollowed areas in Wall Street. And over the next 25 years, I built a firm in San Francisco that had at the peak around $800 million in hedge fund money. I had 16 employees, and I had 3 different offices. In 2008, I noticed that our returns as a firm were really changing. I mean, we came through the financial crisis actually in very good shape, but our overall returns, we had been averaging 20% a year after fees for investors, which put us in the top 1% in Wall Street in hedge funds. And so after '08, we couldn't seem to make money. And one day I was in Chicago visiting a client, and he said, I want to show you something. And so he took me downstairs, and we went into a room. And it was a room just like this. And it was the start of what was called high-frequency trading. And I walked into that room, and I realized that what I did was over. My opportunity was gone. And so at that time, as an entrepreneur, you have to realize, and be very aware of when the markets change. Because if they don't, then you're going to get caught. So it took us 2 years to sort of reposition ourselves, and what we transitioned into was what is called a family office. But these machines are super, super, super fast, unlike anything. And if you follow the investment world, they have literally changed everything. So about the same time the machines arrived on Wall Street, I had made an investment in a heli-ski business. And I have a real passion for skiing. And so I decided to become really serious about being a heli-ski guide. And one of the things in my career as an entrepreneur that I really looked for and really sought out was mentors. And so I was very lucky over the course of my career to find mentors in the business world and outside of the business world that could really give me advice, not only about business but about life. And one of my mentors told me, and I was 50 at the time, that just said, look, you need to do things in your life that stretch you, that push you in directions that make you grow. And I realized for me, it was really about this. So in 2010, I really committed myself full time, and I became mentored by a bunch of 30 and 40-year-old young men and women that are full-time heli-ski guides, and some of the best in the country, for a company called Powderbird. So that's probably I think, one of my greatest things that I look back on as an accomplishment is not really my success on Wall Street, but the ability to sort of move on and find a different opportunity that sort of pays you in intrinsic ways. Final slide is sort of a collage of, I call this the life slide, but for me, in 2011, my daughter was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And my wife started a foundation. And at the time, it was very small. But Limelight Foundation, which is in the upper left, and the pictures up there is the current staff, she's grown that into a national nonprofit. What Limelight does is we give grants to children that have Lyme disease that can't afford treatment. So over the history of the foundation, we've given out about $2.4 million. And what's been interesting about running Limelight, I'm the chairman of the board, but literally my wife does all the work, is I've run it like a business. And I think from that standpoint, we've been super successful in the way that we approach it and the way we've grown it. So another aspect of, I think, being an entrepreneur is, if you're lucky enough to make it, is really to figure out a way to give back to the community. So the woman in the upper left, upper right on your side, is a woman named Jax Mariash. She's the world champion in ultramarathon. She ran on behalf of Limelight, and she also was someone that I sponsored her athletic career. So the bottom right picture is just a heli-ski guide meeting, and just, again, the whole point about being mentored. So that's my talk on entrepreneurship. Thank you.